Hello, Juan Pablo. Do you hear me? Hello, everybody. Hello, it's 11 in the morning here in Barcelona. I imagine you are there, but I don't see we are 10 so far. So good morning. I'm Lucho. Let's wait some minutes for the rest to join and to share and to enjoy this presentation with me all together. I see some people here. Hello, Carla. Thanks for coming. Catherine, Consuelo, Daniel, Elliot, Kuda, Lenin, Martin, Michelle, Tatiana. Thanks for being here. Okay, great. So let's get started while the rest of the people will join us. Thanks BTS also for inviting me to this BTS talks. It's a pleasure for me being here. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself and also about what I have here to show you. Let's get started. Let's move forward with the main things that I have to show today. First of all, we have the main core point, which are how to plan and drive conversation-based solutions. We are going to be looking at core characteristics of voice interactions, the sense of projects versus product, these virtual assistants, these little machines that we are going to be talking to are going to be growing along the time, or we have a project and then we leave them and they live alone. So we're going to be reviewing about those things. I'm going to share also the conversational framework that we use, the company where I work on, to drive all the steps and all the techniques along the way, to see how everything should be designed in a way that we can deliver a great user experience. Right? We're going to be talking also about system persona, personality, how we shape this tone of voice. We're going to be looking at the same principles to write effective conversations, grounding techniques, some tools, procedures, and finally, different kind of user testings we can run, because we have a variety of testings. And in terms of interaction, you might think that they can be a little bit different. Why? Because it's not a graphic UI where people just interact with something which is there. In this case, they only speak, and they speak whatever they want. So we have to have some constraints, and we have to bear in mind some other issues in this case, right? Remember, you can ask me questions whenever you want. We have a chat, and we also have the the questions and answer panel where I can see everything, and also Juan Pablo is from BTS helping me. Let's move on. A little bit about myself, just briefly, for you, if you don't know me. I imagine some of you, yes, and I see some students also here. I'm from Mar del Plata, which is a city in Argentina, on the coast. I have a background in software engineering. I worked many years as a front-end developer and iOS developer. I'm also Scrum Master certified. And I did a post-degree in design thinking and a master in UX design. And I worked many years in both areas. As a university professor, I have been teaching for the last 12 years in different universities. And I was part of different academic research groups, researching about accessibility and usability in mobile context, for example. along these past 12 years, I was leading and working in user-centered projects in those locations for companies in those places, mainly in the areas of journalism, health, education, banking, and insurance, right? Nowadays, I work at GFT, which is a German company, in this case, based in Sant Cugat, Barcelona, but it's in 15 countries so far. We work for the banking and the financial sector. There, I'm the UX and service design manager. I'm also a designer in terms of conversational projects. We have a global innovation lab, which I invite you to come, and we are able to receive people, right? Because here we put into practice many technologies and many user experiences where clients, fintechs, users all bring together in order to co-create something valuable, right? Here we talk about exponential technologies like artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, IoT, blockchain, and so forth. Within the company, I'm also a UX coach. In terms of academic experience, I'm a teacher in the University of Arte Catalunya also, teaching human-computer interaction. I'm part of IXDA Barcelona, so I invite you to join because we run a lot of meetups and events now in remote way, but we usually have this kind of gathering in Barcelona. And obviously at BTS, where I teach in a master in UX, I teach UX management, and then also teach testing and assessment. Right? Last but not least, I have been teaching in different universities and in different subjects, as you see here, from 2008, business on internet, web architecture, in the software engineering career, web programming and design patterns in the engineering degree, web design and usability, human-computer interaction, user research in a bootcamp, and here in BTS, these last two subjects. That was everything about me. I imagine you come from different backgrounds. If you want in the chat, you can give me some ideas about your level of expertise in this matter or your areas where you professionally develop yourself. Right? But let's move on exactly about the topic we have for today, which is conversation-based services, experiences, or products. The first question we usually make is why to create this kind of stuff? Why we have to create conversational-based services? It's only because it exists, because many clients come to us and say, now we want to make the same that we did for mobile services, for mobile application, but now with Alexa, and now with Google Home. Why? Because it's something new, it's something disruptive, it's something that you think you should be there. It's like if you're not in Facebook, okay, you don't exist. If you're not in Instagram, okay, you don't exist. That's the mindset we need to have in these kind of projects. Maybe no, right? So we as a team make those questions at the beginning. It's worth developing, it's worth designing this kind of conversational-based services for your service in concrete, for your organization. You have a certain maturity level that allows to create this kind of products to be delivered to your own clients. So it's like reframing the problem, right? But this kind of interfaces, when you speak, when you interact with Alexa, with Google Home, with by telephone, by other kind of voice-related interfaces that are driven by natural language behind, right? Natural language processing, they have some advantages, and it's based on different studies. For example, the speed. Writing, in this case, voice, or in this case, speaking or dictating, is faster than typing. It was based on different studies. So the conclusion was, okay, we speak faster than we write. That's one of the insights. On the other hand, hands-free. That's very obvious because we can be interacting with our mobile phone, but if we are doing something else, maybe we are not able to do that. So voice interactions makes a lot of sense here. And also it's intuitive. Why? Because we have learned how to talk. We have learned how to express ourselves by words, right? So this sense of the learning curve disappears somehow. And also empathy. We have seen, based on our experience and also based on different studies, that this kind of interactions, when you have some machine speaking to you, this sense of empathy is there. It's not the same relationship when users interact with a mobile phone or with a website. So it creates this sense of, okay, I'm talking to someone, and let's see how it works, how to put that under control. And on the other hand, there are some advantages for the business as well. That's very important to bear in mind, because we, at the end of the day, we work for certain organizations to produce great and seamless user experiences, but also to have certain return of the investment, right? Satisfaction, Net Promoter Score. Different studies were driven here. In this case, different managers answer the chatbot, allow them to have a more personalized service for their customers. So if it's a more personalized service, it means that it will increase the satisfaction of those users, right? On the other hand, different business managers also agree that this kind of solutions deliver a large ROI with a minimal effort, right? So revenue, retention, cost reduction, again, and satisfaction. In this case, consumers said that they would make their primary means of contacting with customer support if they could be guaranteed an immediate response. It means we need a response as soon as possible. So it will raise again the satisfaction. But on the other hand, 40% of chatbots of this kind of solutions will be abandoned by 2020. So that's controversial. Why? We say that we have different advantages. However, we see that they will die this year. Why? Because we need to bear in mind how we design them. We need to bear in mind all the effort we put into creating the real experience, and not just moving what we have in mobile phone to something driven by voice. Those are the chatbots and the voice interaction that will die, basically. So in here we have to consider the service, how we design the service in this channel, in this kind of interactions, but also how we personalize experience user by user, right? Imagine you go to an office and you speak to someone and they know you. So if they know you, you have a special relationship. This same sense of personalization we can create here as well. Perfect. Some predictions just for you to understand based on different organizations and entities. 50% of searches will be driven by, searches will be voice searches by 2020. Because I have the window here with my face, I'm going to remove it from here just to see this slide much better. Now, yeah. By 2020, more than 50% of enterprises will spend more per year on bots and chatbot creation than traditional mobile app. So it reveals that maybe some promising direction that we can take. Nearly 1 to 6 customer service interactions globally will be handled by artificial intelligence. And also, Gartner said by 2020, the average person will have more conversations with bots than with their spouse. It was said last year. Let's see what happens, right? So as a summary, those are promising statements in terms of prediction that give us some ideas about the success of this kind of interactions. Okay, we have graphic UI on the one hand. So users are able to interact with everything here at the same time. The experience is in parallel. Everything is communicating more or less at the same time in the same screen. You can use different patterns to hide information and to progressively discover that, but you have everything at the same time, and you can touch and you can swipe and you can interact with it whenever you want. And if you go away and then you come again, everything is there, right? We say that users are constrained in this case. They can tap, they can click, but they cannot do things that are not present in that UI, right? Then on the other hand, we have voice user interface that they are sequential. If you're speaking, you are not doing something else. And if the machine is speaking, The machine is not providing you extra clues to interact with different other things. So the interaction is more or less linear. The info is fleeting because the machine, or Google Home in this case, speaks, you have to listen to it. Otherwise, you have to ask them to repeat because information is not going to be there for you to review afterwards, right? Obviously, you can use other UI screens associated to the voice interaction to have the information persistent if you want to review that. But in this case, it's fleeting in comparison with the graphic UI. We say that users are unconstrained. Why? Because they can say whatever they want. They can say whatever they want at any time. So that's why they're unconstrained. I don't know if my camera is working all right, or maybe I see here a little bit of delay in my camera, but I hope you are also watching my face, my expressions, not only the presentation. Okay, let's move on. So I'm going to introduce the GFT conversational design framework. What's that? It's a set, it's a gathering of different processes, technique, questions, concerns, tools that we use to run this kind of projects. And when I say projects, it initially is a project, and then it's going to be a product. Why? Because it will grow, it will be optimized, and it would live like an entity. So it's not a project and then we leave it. That's why this is an iterative process, iterative framework, going from discovery, conversation design, interaction and prototype, and then validation. It's like a subset of design thinking also. Perfect, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. I'm going to review every step very in detail, and then we're going to see many of the things that we do across this framework, but we are not going to get into detail in every specific vertical, in every specific technique, right? Just for you to know the cross overview. Here in the service discovery, we make those questions. We reframe the problem. Does it make sense to create these voice interfaces? Does it make sense for your users to interact with Google Home? Does it make sense to recreate the same experience that you have in mobile phone in this new channel? So we reframe everything for our stakeholders to understand if that's the right solution, right? At least at this point in time. Then we identify the specific audiences that we are going to be addressing this experience. Then we are going to be mapping the services of the organization, which also called the service ecosystem, and where this agent, these virtual agents will operate, will provide services. Because you can have an organization with a lot of services, then you have a virtual assistant offering certain services. Imagine it's a new employee. Imagine it's a new person working in the organization, providing this customer support to the users. He or she will know about everything. He or she will have certain capacities that really overwhelm users, and they are going to be very specialist in one area. So those kind of things, we treat them here. The second point, highlights. We work here with emotions, tone of voice. We said, based on different studies, that this is a very empathic user interaction. It means that we need to really care about how we design the dialogues, how we design the conversations, the pace, the rhythm, the intonation. All those stuff should be really taken into consideration here. And at this point, we work with the with the company value, with the brand personality and customer language. Here to recreate the sense of, oh yeah, I'm talking to a virtual assistant, but it's a great guy. I don't know why, but I felt really good interacting with him or her. And the number 3, we basically design. I don't know how many designers we have here, but in this phase you will see the tools, procedures, and other things that are not the same that we usually do when we design graphic user interfaces. We have we consider certain detail for novice users, for expert users, and we work with those outcomes: conversational flow, decision tables, and the phrase map. Right? Finally, we prototype something, we recreate some voice-driven interface, and then we interact with it with some users to understand how it works. Remember, it's not the same the written language than the spoken language. It's different. So we need to bear in mind that difference. And when we have in this point number 4, we put that into practice. We feel how it sounds, these spoken dialogues that we have created before, right? Okay, perfect. Remember, you can ask questions. You can ask wherever you want, or at the end, or during the presentation. Remember, this is like a Spanish tapas. You know, Spanish tapas is this kind of little food that you go eating here, eating here, eating here, but it's not a full meal, a full dish. But altogether, yes, right? In this case, we're going to be covering these 4 steps, seeing every ingredient we have inside of those chunks. As I said before, in discovery, we talk about the service, we talk about the audience and what's behind the organization also, right? Let's imagine this picture. That's the coffee. The product is the coffee, and people drink that coffee. But the interaction is slightly different, right? The picture on the left, you can imagine why that makes sense. And the picture on the right, you can also imagine why that makes sense. But the product is the same. So what would you think that those kind of glasses are more appropriate? In which context? You can think by yourself, and you can imagine that even though that's the same product, the picture on the right has a specific context. While people have to take that away, when people have to go away, they want to continue interacting and having the experience of drinking a coffee. But if they're in the store, maybe they would prefer the other picture on the left, right? Even though the product is the same, right? In the sense of voice interactions or voice experiences, why people will be interested in using voice interfaces by doing the same that they do with the mobile phone or with the websites, right? Why they will be driven to that direction. Okay, I'm going to talk to Alexa now. I'm going to talk to Google Home to do the same that we did before in another channel. Why? In this case, we have the purpose with the coffee because the context. I cannot be going away, driving or walking with the picture on the left, right? But yes, we have the context here. In the case of voice interactions, should be the same. The use cases that we put into into voice interactions should make sense really based on the context in which they are. If you are driving, you cannot interact with the graphic UI. If you are cooking, you cannot be interacting with the graphic UI. So it really makes sense to be interacting with by voice, for example. But we have some controversial debate internally. What about the use cases that you can do the same in different channels? Will the users choose interacting by voice? On the other hand, you know them, right? You know those superheroes. Perfect. You know what they do best. For example, if you have to guess, you will see, okay, Aquaman really swims awesome, right? And on the right, Superman, okay, we know their main strengths, right? They fly absolutely great, but he has also another strength, but we know the main, right? At this point, we do the same with the voice interfaces. Why? Do we want to create a specialist virtual assistant? Do we want to create a generalist that people will interact with him or her and asking wherever about the organization? Or maybe they will be helping people find which bank offers the best option and taxes for the mortgages, but not for loans, maybe not to open an account. Maybe in this case, it's a specialist for mortgages. Okay, that's a specialist. It's a very vertical customer assistant. And then we have advising students about how to save money based on their roommates' spendings. That's a challenge if we want to create this kind of specialist virtual assistants. On the other hand, we have those generalists that different people, different stakeholders within the organization will include different little use cases And then probably you have a Frankenstein at the end of the day, right? So we need to take into consideration many other constraints when we create a generalist than a specialist, for example. Okay, perfect. Another questions we make by ourselves at this point. Users need to take many steps to get the info by using this use case. Are users busy while interacting? Is something they will have in a conversation? If you answer yes, yes, and yes, probably that use case really makes sense to be included into your customer voice customer assistant, right? Those are questions coming from Google. They have also the same pattern and some frameworks. Those are questions that really reveal if this use case really makes sense to be included there, right? At this point, we also think about the organization. We also think about how aspirational you are in terms of evolution, disruption, transformation, where you want to be. What's your roadmap in 6 and 2 years, in 6 months and 2 years? We need to sense how this organization breathes just to understand their innovation maturity. Why? Because this customer assistant, these voice customer assistants, could understand many things about the users, could understand your mood, your emotional status, your background, what you did before coming here, what you interacted with other channels from the organization, your preference, your customs, where you are in this specific moment, many things. But as much as you want to discover, that's more aspirational from the technological point of view, right? So we need to know how this organization is, in what current situation, just to provide the right experience. We also discover here where they will be delivering those services. It means this customer assistant, this voice interaction, this entity that your customers will be speaking to, will be in the contact center also, will be in mobile phone, will be in some devices like Alexa, Google Home, or you will be interacting with the chatbot also in Facebook Messenger, and it will be the same entity. You will talk to Sarah, which is probably one potential name of this assistant. Hey, Sarah, how are you? Could you let me know my credit balance, please, by using Facebook Messenger? And then when you call by phone, Sarah is also there. And when you interact with your mobile application from this banking entity, Sarah is also there. So where Sarah will be? Omni-channel analysis. This is the point where we ask those questions. Opti-channel analysis. It means, do we have the chance to deliver the experience to another product of this organization also? It means you are interacting with Google Home and you asking some information. Maybe it's not appropriate to be driven by a spoken language. If I need to give you the last 10 products you purchased, maybe 10 products by listening to the machine is too much. So Google Home will say, okay, I send that to you by a notification to your mobile phone. That's okay. Okay, perfect. So I received the notification in my mobile device. But if we have an application there, maybe by email, maybe by other channels that this organization has available or offers services, right? In this case, we ask those questions so we understand the product and the service ecosystem of the organization, just for the voice interaction to deliver, just to delegate some responsibilities in other interfaces, right? Perfect. We are more or less finishing the first part, which is discovering. Here we think about how people perceive these kind of solutions in the world, let's say, right? We know that different people choose different devices like Google Home, Alexa, Cortana, Siri, and others. We also know that which are the main use cases in these kind of interactions. We know that ask a question, listening to streaming music, check the weather, set an alarm. So those kind of statistics are very important for us to make sure if our use case is fitting in some of those areas. So It's basically based on different studies and research that many organizations perform. At this point, we look at them. We know where we are, right? And last but not least, the perception of different kind of use cases in these interactions. What people dislike about voice UI, about voice virtual assistants. In this case, we have discovered that it's a combination of design issues and technological issues. As you see here, we have poor content. If you interact with Sarah, as I said, let's take Sarah as an example. If you interact with Sarah, ask him just one thing, Sarah only answers that thing. It's very little information. It's very little, it's not powerful because I cannot talk to you about many things, so you're not very useful for me. Poor content is the main thing that people dislike about this stuff. Not recognition or misunderstanding. Oh, she did understood. She did understand. She said, I didn't get you. I didn't get you. So please don't repeat that, right? So it's a combination of IT and how we designed before as well. Robotic, not natural variation, wrong style and tone. That's pretty much what I said before. When that's an empathic interaction, that's an empathic user interface. Wrong style is not matching with your own style. To match every user's style, we need to personalize, or otherwise create this sense of Sarah as an entity with a certain personality. And she has a certain personality, so she doesn't have to match every individual, as different people don't have to match every individual in terms of the tone, how you communicate, right? If users perceive Sarah as an entity, okay, Sarah's like that, and she speaks like that, right? So we have to design that. No voice customization, too wordy, you speak too much, okay, I cannot listen to you, I cannot pay attention too much, and some other constraints. Okay. In terms of discovery, as I said, we think about the service, we think about those questions that we make by ourselves in order to understand if we are on the right track in terms of the use case, in terms of delivering these conversational-based interfaces to our customers. Great. Let's move on to the core point of the presentation, which is the conversational design part. Remember, you can ask questions or at the end of the presentation. Let's see this. In terms of automatic speech recognition, which is the term that we usually use to understand what the user said, user speaks, that's called user utterance. And then this sound is digitized to be mapped into phonemes, and then probably recognized as a text, right? So we have some processes in the middle and they take time, right? When we have this recognition on the right part of the screen, we know what they want you to do. We know we know their intention. If we got their intention, okay, this user wants whatever. So we digitized the sound and then we mapped that and then we understood, probably you are interested in this. The next question is, do we provide services in that matter? Maybe no, because he asked for a pizza and we don't sell pizza, right? But we understood something and then we mapped that internally with different intents. And then we find our associated intent and then we deliver the response. When we deliver the response is when this virtual customer assistant speaks what we have designed in terms of dialogues, in terms of the conversation, right? Lenin asks, do you have any preferred framework for NLP? Okay, that's a great question. Not from the technological point of view. I can recommend the platform that we usually use, like Dialog Flow from Google or Watson from IBM. The framework that I'm presenting here is to solve the first part of this kind of project. The first approach, which is defining the virtual customer assistant as an entity and not like a Frankenstein, adding new features. No, that's an entity because that's empathic, something differentiating from the graphic UI. We need to take advantage of that. So we need to design how this assistant will be. And then every conversation in the middle just to avoid what people dislike about these solutions, right? We in the middle integrate with technological, with IT teams and developers. We go along this process, and then they have the chance to use different frameworks for the implementation part. But as far as I said, I recommend those general tools. They are not frameworks, but in terms of technological point of view, I cannot too much to mention here. Thank you, Eleni, for your question. I give you just 10 seconds to read this QR code, not to watch it now, but for you to watch it afterwards, because you will see how Google Duplex performs with other person in a restaurant. Don't watch it now, but just keep it with you to watch it after the talk, and then you see how it works. You will see how the customer assistance repairs the conversation. Many things that you think that could fail should be considered along the way. And you see in this example of Google Duplex, everything could fail there, right? Okay, perfect. The main 4 outcomes of design part. We have brand, system persona, we have a conversational flow, which is a different asset from what we have usually in the design phase in a regular project. We have also dialogue decision tables, which is called a phrase map. We have also an expert here with us in this talk, which is Carla Leal, that is working with me together. She really handles all those outcomes perfectly with different clients. So thanks, Carla, for being here. What we answer here: who's speaking, how it was said, how it's perceived by users. On the second point, where could the conversation go in case of, as I said, users can say whatever they want, right? In the middle of the conversation. For example, in terms of a banking example, I'm in the middle of requesting a loan. There's a customer assistant says, do you want to proceed by requesting this loan? And the user says, could you remind me my current balance? That's a different thing. We were talking about loans. Could you answer? No, give me your balance. So the user can say whatever they want. And as a machine, I need to handle, he wants a different thing. So let's answer the balance. But then I come here to the last intention and say, do you want to continue with the loans? That's repairing the conversation. If the machine is not prepared to answer another things and then come back again as a natural conversation we have to someone, maybe the conversation at that point will fail, right? You will not be recovering, and the user will say, stop, cancel, I need to check my balance first. And they canceled everything, right? Don Norman, in the UX world, you might know him. People tend to treat bots and computer as if they were people, right? It was an experiment in which different students were tutored by a computer. And then after having this training with this computer, 50% of the students answered the question of this computer, how did I perform? So the computer asked them, how did I perform here, training you? And the other 50% of the students were asked by another computer that was not involved in the training, and she asked, how did she perform? The other computer, the one that did you the training. And surprisingly, participants gave more positive feedback to the computer that asked about itself than they did to the other computer that asked about the other computer that really did the training, right? That's an example of empathy. If we are interacting with the machine, even if it's a machine, we have certain sense of empathy because she's speaking to me. And even more if I see some kind of animation or some kind of picture of this entity of this assistant, right? This is another experiment. Different people were told to answer at least 12 questions. And then you have another 12 optional if you want to answer. Perfect. So, some part of these participants were in touch with an animated virtual human, the others with a picture, with a virtual human, and others with an audio-only solution. You don't see anything, right? And again, people with animating virtual human answer more questions and longer answers and so on. So this sense of, okay, I'm speaking to someone. Maybe it's crazy to think about that, but we have this human perception. We have this behavior in front of these interfaces, right? At this point, in the point number 2, in the framework conversational design, we decide also if we are going to be using an avatar or no. Remember, those points that we go through these presentations should be like drivers for you to get to depend on them afterwards, right? We are not going to be explaining how to select an avatar here, but yes, we are explaining that we need to consider defining that at this point in time. So all the ingredients that should be part of these projects of this process. And then you have the chance to explore further, right? But we know how avatar works, and we know that this high level of engagement is provided by a customer assistant with some sense of avatar, some face, some name. And we also know if we want to be less emotional and we want to be more straightforward, probably avatar is some kind of noise in the conversation, right? Then we care about the voice gender. Just for you to know, there are many examples here. There are many alternatives you can take. It could be female, it could be male. You can let the users select what they want. So the sense of customization, they select what they want to use as a voice gender. And then there are other projects that I can mention here, which is called Meet Q. Q, you can search it on the internet, is the first genderless voice. Sorry, you hear him or her, maybe you don't notice the difference. Sometimes you say, it's a woman, and sometimes you say, it's a man, but it's in the middle. That's another option. They work with different frequencies, combining them. So it's something interesting to take into consideration. But imagine the importance of this. You are creating the entity, you are creating the customer, the virtual customer assistant of the organization, of your product. You should be considering this analysis. You should be determining which kind of voice gender are we going to use, right? That's something you have to do, and then you see how to do it and how to compare others. But just for you to know, remember that. Okay, in terms of the personality, in terms of how we design the dialogues, how we designed every word, it makes sense it deserves to be designed correctly, right? Remember this. Yeah, those products were not meant to create a sense of personality. We're not meant to create this sense of empathy. Yes, they're smiling. No, because they are peppers, they are juice. But however, certain people see something else there, something else, some personality. Okay, they're in a good mood, right? But they were not designed in accordance or accordingly, right? Remember, if that happens with your voice UI, people could feel something, and maybe that's not your intention. So that's why we usually highly recommend to work on this part of defining the tone of the voice, defining the approach, the emotional approach of these voice UIs, because people will feel something anyway, right? Ali, you have a question. Thank you for the question, Ali. Do you think it's better to build an avatar with a regional or global knowledge? Great questions. Great questions. And the short answer is it depends. And the long answer is I would recommend to design an avatar based on each region or each country or each cultural area, right? Because you need to really make sure the impact of this avatar, how this avatar, the name, if it's easy to pronounce everywhere, the colors that you define for the face or whatever, how these things are impacting in different cultures. So that's why I recommend to at least have this analysis based on different areas. And if you have this chance to merge them in something that makes sense for the global point of view, that would be great, right? But remember, sometimes you have different assistants. You don't use the same customer assistance, not only from the design point of view, but also from the technological point of view. You don't use the same in all the globe. Use at least per country, let's say, as far as my experience. And also this one, which is very fun. Perfect. Okay, let's move on because I think I have to jump to another chapters. Conversation framework. I'm going to move faster, right? So for you to know how we work and how we go through this conversational design sheet on the right. We have this sheet with different boxes, and we cover those points in different workshops with our stakeholders. Sometimes we include users, sometimes we include stakeholders from different areas within the organization. If we go from the brand identity, we work on the customer value, brand personality, customer language, right? Those are the ingredients, the main ingredients to define the citizen persona here. We ask some questions by ourselves to other stakeholders, and they answer. They provide their knowledge based on their contact with the users and with the company, and so on, right? Here we paste some post-it below those questions, and then we prioritize them, and we organized other information based on what we stand for as an organization. What do we stand for, right? What's our purpose? Why? Because the customer assistant, which is the virtual employee of the organization, should reflect that essence, right? So first of all, in these projects, we need to understand what this organization reflects, not only to their audiences, but also by themselves internally. Then we work personality. We talk about formal language, informal language. We define the spoken person. We work with different canvases based in little dots. The red ones are our personality, our organizational personality nowadays. And the green ones are where we want to move. What's the switch we want to make in our behavior in terms of how we speak with our clients. That's something that the customer virtual assistant should take care of, right? At the end of this process, we come up with the brand personality spectrum, which is this sense of different attributes, personality attributes, or prioritized and voted by people. And then for each one of those on the right here, then we have just the voice characteristic chart, the brand voice chart, which is mainly kind, for example, and then what's kind, what should a kind person speak, how a kind people speak, and then the do's and the don'ts and some examples. Through these canvases, we are going from these company values, from this personality to something more tangible, which is some text, some expressions of people like that in the reality, right? Perfect. We also consider how users speak, how users interact with the company. So we review different other sources of information to combine everything and to create what is called the system persona, which is the personality behind our customer assistant. Then we move to the user needs and context. We have a variety of methods to use here. Some sources could be direct exploration with users, some research, CRM, agents, sales, social media, global trends, and so on. And that's part of the user research area in which we discover what they really need and their context. And if this use case really makes sense to be included into the voice interaction solution. At this point, we go through the task. The tasks are an ideation of what this virtual employee will do. What's the use case that will be implemented there? what the users will be able to ask them, right? So we create different things, different examples, and then we prioritize them based on the business and audience impact matrix. It's basically an ideation phase around spoken use cases, and also a prioritization technique to see like the MVP of the virtual assistant. Those are examples, and that is Carla's. So you're the protagonist also here, Carla. And people interacting and creating the dialogues and having a role play. First of all, they write dialogues, and we iterate how we write them and the expression that we feel while listening to them. So it's an iterative process, but we work in workshops all together, progressing along the way. Okay, perfect. I'm going to skip that part. I'm going to go to the structure. And here I have some questions for you. For example, imagine the user says, what's the current giant score? Okay, as a machine, as a virtual assistant, I can say, perfecto, perfect. San Francisco Giants or New York Giants? Because they're two different giants. But as you see above, what are the things I need to understand to give the answer? I need to understand as a machine the team and the date. Those are called slots in this point. The slots are things that I need to understand from the users to provide an answer, right? In this matter, what a user said is also considered the utterance, and what the machine answers is considered a prompt, right? And here is a case of disambiguation. Again, those terms are very technical, but those are very common in these kind of situations, right? Let's see how the machine processes all the information. Okay, I understood the intent. Get a score, perfect. And then I filled the slot team because the user said Giants. And then the question, the San Francisco Giants or the New York Giants? Is that necessary? What other knowledge would you help you decide to provide the answer? What other approaches would you take? And that's where assumptions come into action. It means, can I assume something, an answer, just to provide value, to add value, and I'm removing or avoiding this other question for the users? Because we want to remove this kind of noise in the middle, asking and the user answering, and I ask you again, and the users answer. No. As soon as I can provide the solution or the right result, the better, right? In this case, I could assume, okay, I know that user. I know that user knows or likes the New York Giants because he's fan of it. So I'm going to provide the result of his favorite team, which is New York Giants. Perfect. And maybe if he was asking about the San Francisco's one, they will ask again. But it's highly probable that they are asking about, or he's asking about the New York Giants because he's a fan of it, right? On the other hand, it says current score. If I detect that's current, I can assume that he's asking about who is playing currently, right? So I'm not going to ask San Francisco or New York because I know that San Francisco is playing at this point in time, at this moment. So I'm going to answer, okay, San Francisco, not information, without re-asking again, right? And so just to remove this friction in the conversation. Just for you to know, the terms utterance, prompt, disambiguation, we have an intent to detect what the users want to do, and some slots we need to understand from those utterances to proceed with the answer, and then we can have assumptions to really remove the frictions in the conversation. Again, I'm going to remove this example as well because we are running out of time. Maybe we're going to be finishing after 12. I hope you have a little bit of time. Trading phrases. Here we work on different variations of the same thing, of the same utterance that the users are able to speak. How much money do you have? What about my balance? I want to know how much I have in my account. What's my current status? All those things could be the same, could be associated to the same intent, which is getting the balance, right? So these training phrases are also part of the design phase when we enrich this vocabulary from the user's point of view, right? Think about it. Google Home, Google Assistant. Hi, how can I help? The user says, turn off the living room lights. And the Google Assistant says, I'm going to turn the living room lights off. Is it okay? Yes, that's what it said, right? But that question is an additional level of friction because I have to say, yes. However, when you turn the lights on, naturally, anybody asks you, is that correct? That's what you want? So a better approach would be turn off the room's lights. Okay, turning 6 lights off, and that's all. If they want to turn that on again, they will ask, right? This difference are called explicit confirmation and implicit confirmation. Implicit is, okay, turning 6 lights off. I'm also confirming the action there, right? But I am proceeding with the action. And on the left, I require an extra confirmation. I say, is that okay? So I'm not going to perform anything. I'm not going to proceed. On the right, I proceed because maybe it's not a risky situation, and I can do that. But I also let you know what I did, right? Different approaches you should take into consideration along this process. I'm going to move over because remember other confirmation strategies like beep or colors, not always talking, okay, is that correct? Okay, I did that, thank you very much. I'm here if you need something else. Okay, don't speak too much. Try to provide value, just removing the friction in the conversation. Here in the conversation design, we also care about how we speak with the users in terms of every little sentence we write. Let's imagine this example. On the left, we have, please let me know your date of birth with a month, day, and year. But the same thing could be requested to the user by saying, please let me know your date of birth, such as July 22, 1972. Which one of those do you think that really work better? In this case, it's this one on the right, because we understand this in terms of conversation design. Instructions are with some examples on the instructions are much powerful than if the users need to understand, okay, month and then day and then the year. Okay, understood the order. No. If you provide the example, we quickly understand how to provide the answer. They replace their own data in this template. There are many other examples like this, but just for you to know that these kind of details are really considered here. And those are different from what we usually understand in graphic UI, right? Here we work for novice users, we work for expert users. This is the first interaction for the novice user. I'll ask you a series of questions about how you're feeling. It will take a few minutes, but the question will help the doctor determine the best course of action. First, did you take your medication yesterday? Okay, as a first interaction, that would be okay. Expert users, which are users interacting every day. Hello, Peter. Did you take your medication yesterday? And that's all, more straightforward, more, I know you, Peter. I'm not going to explain everything. But if you don't design those texts, those literal, those quotes separately in the design phase, when this customer assistant is implemented, we'll implement just one kind of introduction, which is on the left, right? But the experience will be really repetitive. And this is another level of quality. You have to design the dialogues not only for one interaction, but also for the rest, novice or experts in different languages with different idioms and so on. That's the complexity. We also care about context, hence while people are doing other things. I'm going to show an example of this, which is Laura, would you like a coffee? And Paul answers, Coffee will keep me awake. Okay, what do I do? Would you like a coffee or not? What's that answer? That's a valid answer. But if you know that it's in the morning, maybe will keep me away is okay, that's perfect, right? But if it's at night, maybe it's not, that's a no. I'm not going to make you coffee because it will keep you awake and it's night, right? So this extra layer of context will give you the chance to understand the answer. In a regular and basic customer assistant, he or she will say, sorry, I didn't get that. Could you repeat the answer? Or I need to know if you would like coffee. Okay, you did understand that keep me awake in the morning means, okay, I want a coffee. Laura again, I'm freezing. What that means, okay? However, Paul understood, okay, I'm gonna shut the window. Okay, I understood that you're freezing, and as the window is open, I can connect the dots and say, okay, you are really implying that I shut the door, right? I shut the window, right? But that connection is huge for a customer assistant or for a natural language processing solution. But that's a higher level of quality that we need to work on as well. That's why we have different kind of contextual information, contextual questions. If we answer many of them, we will be able to personalize experience. We will be able to deliver a really contextual customer assistant or voice interface that is absolutely powerful. Right? Here we work in something called repair strategies. For example, welcome to your banking assistant. How can I help you today? And the user says, can I order a pizza? Internally, that's a no match. That's the term we use to say, I understood what you said, but we don't provide that. So we don't have an intent design behind to give you an answer. But that's a no match. What I do as an assistant, I have to do something that should be designed as well when people ask something and I don't understand. So I have to provide the chance to recover the conversation. The machine says, how much money do you want to send? And the user doesn't say anything. Now, what do I do as a machine? I need an answer if they want to do it or no. But the user silence, right? Internally, for us, that's a no input. A no input is when the users don't say anything. So we need to do something. We need to say something else, right? That should be also designed, right? Not only when the things go okay, but also when the things go wrong. Oh, it didn't match. Oh, it's in silence, but I need an answer. What do I do? So you have to design those dialogues as well, right? And then when we have the scenario of, I want to send 50 euros to Maria, and then the machine says, sure, you have two contacts with that name. Is it Maria Lopez or Maria Beltran? That's the case in which I understood not only the intent, which is sending money, but also some slot, which is 50 euros. But in the other slot, which is the person that will receive that, I have some problems internally because I detected more than one. So I put into practice this ambiguation by performing another question, right? I'm going to move on just to speed up, just for you to know that we have this kind of repair strategies, depending on what the user is saying, if in silence, if they're not matching with what we offer. So we have to design all those literals as well. Great example. You are in the street and you see a woman like that. And the woman says, help. And you, as a pedestrian, coming there, you say, okay, what do you need? You wouldn't do that, right? Because, okay, maybe that help is associated with what I see, with what I'm seeing, which is she needs she's on the floor. So she needs help to stand again, right? This also something that we need to consider in our customer virtual assistants, which are uncontextualized helps are contextualized. If you are in the middle of a process requesting a loan and you are providing your ID number, as a user say, I need help, is not the help of understanding what this customer assistant does. It's the help of understanding how to provide the ID, because I don't know if he's with the letters or without the letters or whatever, right? This help, if you understand this contextualized help, is a huge, it's another level of quality for your assistant. Right? We work in a small talks, dirty words, because users will say that. Users will say, okay, I love you. Okay, do you know where to find a pizza? Or whatever. They will say, and what we do as an assistant, what we do as a voice interaction solution, nothing. No, we need to handle those situations in a more fancy way or more formal way, or maybe whatever. But you need to consider those scenarios because it will happen. Right? It's not like a graphic UI. Graphic UI users are not allowed to press in places where we don't have any component. In here, they can say whatever. They can interact with whatever they want to say. We also have the chance to work with spoken prompts and also some display, showing something as cards or suggestion chips, as prompts on the screen, if you are using the mobile phone also. If you are using Alexa, for example, we are not able to do that. And then we analyze the anatomy, different parts of the sentences, acknowledgement, very important. Okay, got it. Okay, sure. And other things are very important for us to provide this natural sense of conversation. If you are talking to a machine, okay, that's a machine. I'm not going to talk to you. I want to talk to a human, right? But if those literals, if those conversations are correctly designed, you feel like something else. Okay, I can interact with you, and you are solving my problems. And the conversation is natural, is fleeting, is really fluent. Why? We need to care about those, what we call discourse makers. Okay, perfect. Let's move on. The first part of, I'm going to do. Let's begin. It's more natural. It shouldn't be like a machine. This is more or less the last part of the presentation. We work with this kind of assets. That's the outcome. It's like a flow. But those squares you see there are conversations, or at least part of the conversations. If the user says whatever, what I do, whatever. If the user doesn't say anything, what I do, whatever, right? And then in correlation to this outcome, we have the other on the right associated to each part of the flow with exact sentences, with exact information about what the virtual assistant will say, right? So those are the main deliverables we have, and they work together along the way, right? Last but not least, just to mention, we have different kind of interactions: voice only, voice first, voice added. And then we have the tools that we use to prototype very fast. And finally, we have 4 kind of user testing methods. The very basic concept testing, which is Wizard of Oz, very informal, just to understand that use case makes sense in voice. And then some DTT for technical purposes, some VRT for experience integrity, just to test the spoken language there. And finally, the traditional user testing with other users. So as you see, we have 4 categories of testings if we want to run these techniques with voice user interface. Summarizing, those are the 4 main building blocks in our framework. Those are all the ingredients, all the Spanish tapas that we have eaten during this talk. And as you see, we have a lot of information here and many points to be taken into consideration in these projects. If you have the interest of exploring many of them, you can contact me. You can explore out there on the internet. You have a lot of information, but this is the approach that I wanted to share with you. That's what we usually do in our regular basis. I know that's a lot of information, but I wanted to make it really, really cross for you to see all the repercussions that we came along while facing these kind of challenges. Okay, Perfect. I have a question here. In my opinion, it's better for the teacher to give the customer choice to then ask a question because it's possible to choose a type of questions. I'm not going to guide. Exactly. Yeah, I agree, Ali. Give the customer knows. We don't be just working. What do you think about it? It says you're going to choose a type of questions along with customer guidance. It gives the customer the feeling that the customer knows. Yeah, yeah, but maybe not. Maybe, but and enjoys working with a role. So what think about it? Yeah, there are different approaches in this case, and also it depends on the discovery phase, the kind of entity you wanted to create. It's very difficult to change your direction in the middle of your project. If you decide at the beginning to have this more emotional approach, to have this direction in terms of how users will be interacting within, if users will see this machine as real entity, that's the point where we define that. Maybe in the middle or at the end is very difficult. But for example, if you create a banking virtual assistant, we don't want people to fall in love with him or her. We want people to enjoy really interacting with my banking assistant, right? They have a different approach. If we have an assistant to solve my diet issues or to help me be healthier, maybe we need some more engaging experience. In that case, I would choose this kind of approach that you mentioned. If you consider we have created this type of structure for people who don't have much information, we want to have in fact looking for content without supervision. I don't understand your Ali, your second question. Maybe we have a copy of the presentation. Yeah, I think Juan Pablo is around here and he can send that afterwards. Thank you, Consuelo. Yes, I understand the question because there's a lot of information and that's what's the idea. Just for you to say many things and then you say, okay, I'm interested in certain part of the process. I'm going to deepen on it, right? I didn't want to show just one vertical without mentioning the cross overview, right? Could recommend some sources to learn more about the subject, books, online courses? Yeah, I can recommend. I have many things to share. For example, let me check the title. Let me check the title because I have one sec. Yeah, designing voice user interfaces. That's a book in O'Reilly. As far as I know, that's a good one because I read it and it gives you many ingredients of how to handle this. You will see in that book that it's explained many examples of many of the points that I showed here in this presentation. So you will have the chance to deepen on them and to have the chance to see more examples also. So it's a nice book to read in this matter, right? But I can share afterward different other courses. And as a matter of fact, you don't have too many things related to voice user interface in terms of academic offering, because it's something kind of new and there are not many frameworks or methodologies out there to treat specifically this kind of projects. Maybe you are adapting other treatments to be used in this voice context, but there are not a lot of context or content about it. Another recommendation I can give you is attend conferences when we are able to do that, right? Because I did that in the past and I was able to be in touch with different professionals and with different people talking about this content, about these topics, and it was very valuable. Conference combined with books or some other sources could be great. Here, I could recommend some source. Okay, Catherine, I answer more or less your question. Carla, I have a question regarding the discovery phase. Imagine that a client contacts us to offer some of their services through conversational interfaces. His client nowadays don't offer any service by conversational way. which tips or methods can give us to help them to choose the right services to bring conversational interface, how to prioritize them, and how we can identify if it's better to choose voice only, voice first, or voice added strategy for the preferred. An important point, how we can help them to choose the best channel during the service. Perfect. Perfect, Gala, thank you for the question. For your first question, if you have client that doesn't have any conversational-based solution, that's what I mentioned in the discovery part. First of all, I will recommend to create what is called the service ecosystem. So nowadays, what you have, how all the components or your offering is orchestrated in your company. On the other hand, defining correctly what's your strategy, short-term strategy and long-term strategy, seeing your roadmap. Why? Because in the roadmap, you see the directions in terms of innovation, in terms of growth, and you will see if they have this intention of being really disruptive or this intention of really expand their service networks or out there, right? And you will understand if they will need to create this sense of entity. You will include more valuable services in the customer assistant, or if they are trying to expand their services wherever they want, whenever they want. So in the discovery phase, you're able to depict and detect how they think as an organization and think about how to create this conversational-based solution. Tips or methods to choose the right services to bring conversational interfaces and how to prioritize. Okay, that's better. First of all, running ideation sessions, considering what they already have in terms of services, detecting which one of those are really really makes sense to be included in voice. For example, analyzing their context. You take like use case map, different services the organization is offering, and trying to map the real context in which your users are using them. This use case most likely context is this. This other solution, this other offering, most of the users in this context. And when you see all those contexts, you will detect which are the most appropriate to be delivered in voice interfaces. Because, okay, those are maybe when they are moving away, when they are traveling. They are traveling, maybe they are busy. They are not able to use the graphic UI all the time. So you have those analysis, this analysis, and maybe you come up with the idea, okay, those use cases or those services that we usually provide makes more sense to be delivered by voice. Why? Because of this contextual analysis, right? How to prioritize it based on many aspects, like variables based on business, based on the user's point of view, made from the technology point of view. On the one hand, we have different methods to prioritize those use cases, but this is a combination of different impact from the user's point of view and also from the business point of view. How we can define if to choose voice only, voice first, or voice added strategy. That's a good one. Remember, voice only. If the use case is a very complex use case. For example, requesting a loan, right? It's not, I want to request a loan, and you have the loan. You have many questions in the middle. You have many back and forth with the users requesting something. So you can imagine that voice-only approach will add a lot of noise in this case. So I would recommend this kind of voice-only approach for complex solutions or for complex use cases. On the other hand, if you have this combination of voice added, which is the mobile phone and also interacting with it, then the voice assistant has the chance to delegate some responsibility in the graphic UI for you to have it to be analyzed afterwards and so on. And more straightforward, easy to use or quick use cases that the users can be interested in, maybe those could be really implemented only in voice only. So the core point here based on the complexity of the use case, could be one of the attributes to be taken into consideration when deciding which kind of surface we are going to use. Voice only, voice added, and so on. Learning what security measures we absolutely need to consider when developing a conversation system. Just avoid case like impersonating something or something else. What security measures? Well, Lenin, are you asking about security measures from the technological point of view? I imagine. Cases just avoid cases like impersonating something or someone else. I don't understand exactly the questions. If you can repeat that, please, because if it's sort of the technological point of view, I cannot answer that question. Because there are different alternatives. We don't work exactly on that part. We have a specialist solving the security matters. So, what does the future of voice look like? Good example. What we want to be able to hear from now, what they cannot do now. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Kuna. I think that voice interaction will grow absolutely based on the predictions, based on the trends, based on how people really interact with everything, and also based on the current scenario. Now we are delivering some pandemic offering, which is how we in the organization reacted to this current scenario, because people's behavior changed. Now we don't want to touch things. Now we don't want to be each other. It's a very special scenario to use voice to interact with different machines, right? So not only based on the current scenario, but also based on how easy it is for people to understand and to remove this learning curve. I think it will grow really in an important manner in the coming years. However, what we have struggling currently is that many of the algorithms need more training, need more maturity to really understand the users and to have a natural conversation, not machine-based conversation. Problems that we usually face at this point in time: poor content. You have a virtual assistant from one brand. You can do some things. You cannot do. You don't have a very rich set of services included into this assistant. So you will use this assistant to say, okay, how you work. Let's see your performance. But maybe you are not offering a real contextual value. I think this will be improved into the next years as a combination of really thinking if how we are going to put those use cases into this channel. What are the most appropriate use cases in terms of the best context that we can consider in which they add real value, and then how we design the conversations to repair all the cases. If you have the chance to review the video that I shared today, this Google Duplex, or you can search that on YouTube, Google Duplex, you will see how the conversation could go away constantly. If you don't repair that, the conversation would be with many frictions in the middle. If it happens, users will say, okay, I want to have a call with a human because we don't understand each other. That's what usually happens. It's happening in many of the systems nowadays. I think this friction will be a little bit removed along the years, and we will have the chance to interact more with not only with mobile phone or some of those devices, but also in an ubiquitous experience, which says with everything, right? We have a promising future, but we need to care about how to design that and how to implement that, not only to test the technology, but also to add real value, which is the real use cases and the real context considered along the way. Okay. Please give us. Okay, I don't have the link here, but we will. You can follow me, and you can find me on LinkedIn, so we can be in touch, and through that chat I can share whatever you need. I hope you enjoyed this talk. I would have liked to be in person, obviously, but that's why I put a lot of content here, just for you have many ingredients and to have a rich presentation, and they have the chance to explore out there. Many thanks for being there. Stay safe, stay home, and see you soon somewhere. Thank you very much.